Welcome to the awesome Pikachu presentation to go with my Convergence learning plan. The learning plan is called Individuals and Government During the Great Depression, and it's intended to follow a lesson on the causes of the Great Depression, and the lesson itself focuses on the effects on individual families and government aid. A number of state standards, NCSS standards, and NES standards, and the objective for the lesson is that by the end of the lesson, students will be able to create within a peer group an exhibit for a learning gallery related to the Great Depression. Second objective is that by the end of the lesson, students will be able to identify primary sources, such as photographs, audio files, and oral histories. So the lesson begins with the students coming to class, and our motivating activity is a question on the board, an anticipatory set. Students already know to write the answer in their notebook and then to move from there. And this question is going to set them up thinking about individual experiences, their family, other families, because in the previous lesson we only talked about generalities. We're going to start the lesson by telling the students a story, and the story is about a family that lived in the Dust Bowl, and they faced a lot of trials. They moved west to California. It's the story about the family of the Grapes of Wrath, and after a while the students will start to realize that. And as we tell the story, we want to call on them and incorporate them into the lesson and take the generalities that they're bringing from yesterday and make them very specific. We're then going to show a 3-minute clip from the movie made in 1940, The Grapes of Wrath, of Majod packing up to leave, and ask the students how it would be having to leave home, not knowing where they're going, that home is somewhere you can't stay. Then we're going to go through the Google Lit trip of where the Jodes traveled. Now this is the introductory activity, and it's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to explain to the students that what they just experienced is a learning exhibit, which is what we're going to be creating as a class. That some of them will get to work with audio, some will work with video, some will work with photos, and some of them will work with maps, and they're going to create an interactive presentation for the rest of the class. We're going to divide the students into 4 groups. So there's 27 students in the class, so there'll be 4 groups of 7 or 6, and then within the groups they're going to be assigned partners. So you can see on the screen the 4 groups and the questions within the group. Each partner is going to be assigned a question. So we're a group within a group. That way everyone has a responsibility. Once the students are divided, we're going to go through and help them understand what their responsibilities are. Now ideally, each partner should have a computer to work with each partnership so that they're able to access the resources and read through the questions and make the decisions on their own as to what it is that they're going to be doing. So it's going to be a lot of fun, but it does require some significant preparation. The first group is going to be accessing the Library of Congress. They've recently released a number of photos taken during the Great Depression in color. The American Experience is a really great photo collection. It's accessible through Flickr, and the students are going to be creating a slideshow of what individual experiences were like during the Great Depression. The next group is going to be accessing a collection of oral histories and compiling the oral histories onto a Poplet, and their focus is going to be about differences in traveling. Why were people moving? Where were they going? Was it different for groups? The oral histories on this are great, and they're saved in a video format that you can make compatible with the Poplet. The third group will be working on creating a mock news broadcast, and their focus is going to be on FDR and on the fireside chats and on government comfort and government presence. So you can access all of FDR's fireside chat speeches again through the Library of Congress, and some simple audio editing will make the files compatible for whatever the students choose to use or is available in school. The fourth group is going to create a Google Map trip of CCC projects, so they can see where in the country they were affected and how many people were involved in these, and start them thinking about government aid, because that's going to be the next lesson following this unit. After the first day of working, we're going to come together for a 5-minute wrap-up. We're going to talk about primary sources. Now, students should already be familiar with what a primary source is, why it's important. We're going to recap on that because they're all working with primary sources in this. The Google Map group, not as much, but the others are working exclusively with primary sources, so we want to focus that. Day 2, students come back in, and instead of a new question, we're going to have them turn and share with their peers the answer from yesterday's question, and to identify differences between the peers, and then also any differences that they have in relation to yesterday's activity. Now that they've seen some first-hand experiences, how are they feeling? We're going to take a portion of the class to continue work. For the slideshow group to finish creating their slideshow, to make sure that all of the partners' questions are addressed in the slideshow. If they need to add audio, they can. If they want to add captioning, they can. It's whatever the students are able to do in the time frame. The teacher needs to be walking around the room throughout this entire thing, facilitating learning, addressing questions. It's a very student-centered lesson, and so the teacher really needs to be adaptable. We can see now the Poplet group needs to be finishing up their Poplet. This is a very scant example of what can be done, but they can take images, they can take the video files from the oral histories, they can take captions from it and arrange it and address the questions that way. The broadcast group is actually the group that took the longest for me in being able to work with the audio files, but they did get it done and to create a short mock news broadcast talking about FDR and being able to go to the government for aid and listen to the government and have it be a support for the people, which is going to set up for the next lesson. The last group got together their CCC project, put the pinpoints on for where different projects happen. We were able to see that it was a nationwide crisis and there was national help. Then it's time for the culminating activity where the students get to interact with each other's exhibits. They get to move around the room. You want to facilitate them rotating as groups, but they get to see what each other's learned. And this is the fun part. This is where they get to see what they've created and kind of show it off and see what others have created. So much of this lesson is constructed by themselves, that they have to discuss what they're finding with each other and draw their own conclusions. Then we're going to come back and have a formative group discussion, talk about what we saw, talk about what was seen. The assessment portion is really just in their participation and then being able to address the exhibit and make sure that they answered all of the points. The next unit is going to be about international policy, and we're going to contrast this with a similar unit when we talk about the home front in World War II. So it's a really exciting lesson with a lot of potential. I hope you see so and use it. Thanks.